Rick Cross will ride with us today, and he's an amazing builder and an amazing creator. And he created this flat track motorcycle that looks like something out of the 20s, but in actuality, it's all built with new, updated, custom components.
Real life action. Real life action.
I've been into motorcycles since I was about 10 years old. Around 17, 18 years old, I had already had my eyeball on a lot of Harleys, couldn't afford them. We'd grown up with the Flanders family out of Pasadena. They made vintage accessory parts back in the 40s, and they're still in business today. Entered the legitimate business in 1989 as Homicycle in Pasadena. The business lasted about a year and a half, 2 years, and I went off to college then and landed in Long Beach at Cal State Long Beach. I had a house in Long Beach at the time with a 2-car separated garage in the backyard and a swimming pool, so I sat back there in surf trunks all day long with my t-shirt off, restoring bikes. So I'd run down into Mexico. We knew the chief of police in Mexico City. He had a whole yard full of old motorcycles, and I'd started to purchase the motorcycles from him. Sat there and started pulling them all apart and restoring every piece. So we transitioned about junior year of college into bike building full time to subsidize the college education. I continued doing that after college, and it lasted about 2 years. I met my wife Delnay, and we then moved down to Newport Beach. Rented a house right on the sand basically, and really disturbed the neighborhood. A neighbor of mine down on the beach came by and said, listen, I understand you have a degree in finance and whatnot, and stocks are kind of your passion as well. I just interviewed at a local company, Dean Witter, down here in Newport Beach, and they offered me a job. However, I'm passing the job up because I was offered another job at a money management firm. I would like you to go down and meet the manager. We sat down, we talked for about 15 minutes. It was an incredibly short interview. And he said, listen, I want to train you. I want you to go to work for us. Basically got trained and versed as far as what we need to do as a broker and a financial consultant, and came back to Newport Beach, top floor with a office overlooking the ocean, and then they hand you a telephone book and say, start dialing. Decided to quit the brokerage business simply because of stress. You have to have awfully thick skin to be responsible for somebody's financial future. And you're not only responsible for one person, you're responsible for a book of 100 clients. It's one thing when you do this with your wife or your family. It's a whole nother when your family becomes 100 other families that you know and love and you care for. The decision came when I figured that, emotionally my heart isn't in the game anymore. I was fortunate enough to have a friend that was in the industry that I can trust, that I sold the brokerage business to, handed my clients over to, and assure, my clients that they'd be well taken care of. The transition out of the stock brokerage into this business was very scary. We were newlywed at the time. The decision, weighed heavy on me, and we definitely had many discussions about this with the wife. She knew me when I was restoring the Harleys, so she said, listen, you were much happier when you're restoring bikes, and I want you to be happy, and I want us to have this enjoyable, fruitful life, and I'm sure you'll be a success at whatever you do. U.S. Choppers was kind of a fluke. In my search for names and looking on the internet and looking at the landscape, realizing that everybody was something chopper, we said, boy, this is kind of rough. I'm looking through a deck of cards. In a bicycle deck, I'm looking at the Joker card. On the face of the Joker card is a symbol that looks like a dollar sign. It's actually a U and a S overlaid on top of each other. And I said, wow, look at that, U.S. Boy, is that cool. I went through everything, could not find a single shop with the name U.S. Choppers. It really hit home for us, being that we're really red, white, and blue, right down to our shoes here. Historically, we're familiar with restoring old bikes. Realizing that, restoring bikes is going to be a business that's going to become more and more difficult into the future with regards to actually getting the parts. These bikes are so rare. Some of the bikes I restore, there's one bike in 300 in the world. So it takes us an incredible amount of time to locate every part. start. We can't create a viable company and something that has legs into the future by only relying on restorations. So this is where the idea of creating our own product lines came up. So we focus everything that we make basically on these old Art Deco lines from the 30s, the 40s. The frame is fairly unique. The design aspects come out of the 30s, and basically what makes our frame different from the other frames out there is we have what's called a single loop frame. Instead of a traditional two tubes encasing the engine, there's only one single loop that runs underneath the engine and actually supports it in the frame. Now the theory behind this is that when we have two posts like this and we turn a bike, these posts can only roll over a couple inches until you're almost scraping on the road. When we have one single loop supporting that engine, you now have this plane and it rotates versus leaning over and scraping. So this allows us to lower the center of the gravity of the bike a lot more, enabling you to, one, get the weight distribution lower. It gives it a lot better handling characteristics, throwing the weight down lower in the frame. We don't have to worry about anything scraping on this frame. Instead of a standard offset, the engine and transmission being offset to the left, we centerline the motor and the transmission. The whole driveline is centerlined in the chassis to create perfect symmetry both left and right on our lean angles. Another thing that we incorporated into the frame was we slanted the engine forward. When we take this engine and we lean it forward, it also raises our transmission up higher. Now we get an extra 2 inches of clearance out of the transmission box this way. And what that allows us to do is lean the bike over even further. So we can get up to 45-degree lean angles out of our chassis design. When we make something and we put our name on it, it has to have a distinct advantage. It has to represent something that we believe in, and it has to perform, because we're riders and we want anybody that buys a product from us to enjoy their experience.